days.
I know, I
Yeah.
heard.
Probably not as many people. Yeah.
So are you just there for fun or do you live there?
I lived here. Actually, I'm in a suburb on the west side of town. Vegas is a quiet place. You get off the strip. It's it's a smaller town. It's a quiet place. It's a nice place to live.
Yeah, awesome. I've been there a couple of times to teach, and yeah, it's a whole different world once you get off strip.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to just basically let you talk a little bit about your journey and how you came to write this amazing book, and then we'll let you talk. We have questions. I've got questions from the book. We could probably keep you 4 hours. It's so good.
I was going through trying to come up with my questions, and I'm like, oh, I have like 20.
Well, I tried to think about our tribe, Chris, just so you know, is Realtors. And so I know you have a program because some of my Realtors have actually done your extended program. I don't know if you still do that or not. Do you?
Yeah. We got a great thing going on.
Oh,
Awesome. So at the very end, we'll ask you, how can people find you, follow you, and learn more? So push any of those programs that you have available, because I actually think they work perfectly for Realtors.
Okay.
And we'll let you close that out with that. Is that okay?
Sure.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to hang on one second. My son's dogs can go crazy, so I'm going to let him get in here and get a hold of them. But what we'll do is I'll open us up with an intro. Then we'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll go into questions.
All right.
and just so you know, Chris, we have somebody that edits all of it. So if like a noise happens or we have to, something cuts out or whatever, don't worry about it. We'll just keep going because she'll edit it all for us.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. They're in the bedroom. Awesome. Yeah. All right. I'll kick us off. Forgot our intro. Sorry. All right.
You know what? We do need to turn off our notifications. Let me do that just really quickly.
Yes.
I think yours are already off.
Okay. And you got your the recording started?
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. We're good to go.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissack.
And I'm Dana Gentry.
Good morning, Dana. What's new with you?
Oh, I've just been anxiously awaiting our guest today. So I feel like we don't even need the small talk. I feel like we just need to soak up every minute with him.
Absolutely. I've already warned him. We could probably extend this thing to 4 hours. Good morning. So we have Chris Voss with us. And if you haven't read his amazing book, Never Split the Difference, we highly, highly recommend that you do. Good morning, Chris. Why don't you kick us off and tell the audience a little bit about you and your journey?
Wow. All right. Yeah. Good morning. I'm happy to be here. I mean, I'm a small town boy from Iowa. Joined the FBI, became the FBI's lead international kidnapping negotiator, worked in New York City, and then traveled all over the world working kidnappings. Learning about negotiation. I went to Harvard. I went to Scotland Yard. I went and listened to my mom. So I like to tell people, what's the difference between a Midwestern mom and a terrorist? You can negotiate with a terrorist.
That's probably so true.
So, and in process of getting better in the Harvard collaboration, when I was with those guys, they said, look, you're doing the same stuff we're doing. You're just doing it with different stakes, but the dynamics are the same. It's human nature. That's all it is. And you guys are really good at it. So that got me thinking about the application to the business world. I kind of thought it did. I suspected it did all along. But having a validation from those guys was really good. So after I got out of the bureau, I started, my son and I, we started teaching negotiation in business schools. And we taught it at Georgetown, taught it at USC, taught it at Harvard, taught it at Kellogg, taught it at a bunch of places. And then figured, we got to put a book out. When we felt like we had everything together end to end, a complete system, not just an idea, plus validation. I mean, we've been teaching in business school enough that our students were taking it out into real life and making it work and just doing huge deals. I mean, life-changing stuff regularly. And even more important than that, though, is increasing your batting average. Everybody attains success with techniques to some degree, just not as much as they should. How do you get better? And how do you even know that you can get better? So we wrote the book, and then real estate people started picking it up. And it has been a huge boon for people working in real estate. Because, I mean, in real estate, every conversation is a difficult conversation. I mean, the purchase or sale of a house, it's a cliche. It's one of the 5 most stressful events in people's lives. It's a tough conversation every step of the way, and hostage negotiation techniques were tailor-made for that.
Awesome. Yeah, as I was reading the book, I was looking at some of the things that you were teaching, and I thought, wow, we've been either by accident been doing it wrong, or we've just learned it wrong. Because there were a couple places in your book where you talked about, fair, and I know in most negotiations, that's what we're usually trying to get, is trying to find something fair. So kind of talk a little bit about
F-bomb. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, the F-bomb, I know.
So
I wouldn't say that people are doing it wrong. I just say it's a low percentage success rate, and I would also say that there's some things that people just don't know the residue it leaves, and the F-bomb. And we mean to refer to fair as the F-bomb because it just triggers emotional reactions in people, and not good. So what does that do, especially to a real estate agent, a realtor? The real issue with people in the real estate industry is referral rates. You do things to push a transaction forward. A lot of agents believe they got to push people into deals, and that the person should be happy because they sold their house or they bought the house. The residue of being pushed, the residue of, the F-bomb, that's what kills referrals. I think it's a well-known statistic that 80% of buyers and sellers say that they would refer their agent, but only 20% do.
Yeah.
What's happening there? It's because it's a tough conversation every step of the way. And, what you do to help yourself short-term is going to hurt you long-term.
One of my favorite things that you actually said in the book is when you're telling the story of when you were in that hallway in Harlem, and the 3 guys are in the apartment. And first of all, I just couldn't believe that you said it took 6 hours and you didn't hear one word from them. You guys just talked for 6 hours, but you said emotions are one of the main things that derail communication. And I thought it was interesting that you said when they came out, you got them to actually give their answer. And it was like, we just didn't want to get caught or shot, but you actually calmed us down. And so I noticed in that you didn't really talk about fair or, their families or any of those things, that you really went straight to not having the conversation about getting them emotional. It was more of calming them. And while selling houses are a little bit different than getting fugitives out of an apartment on the 27th story building, you still can very much relate those two things.
Yeah. Well, you feel like a seller's a barricaded suspect in a building, right? They won't come out and talk.
Yes, for sure. Well, Chris, talk about never split the difference. I know a lot of times in real estate transactions, in my 30 years of real estate transactions, that's what we do. We just kind of say, well, let's meet in the middle,
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's a downward spiral. I mean, and you see that around you, and you think that's the way to do it. And because people talk about it being fair, and then people see the transactions are made. Yeah, they're made, but there's 2 problems. You're not making as many as you should, and then that residue is splitting the difference. Splitting the difference is a downward spiral. It's an unavoidable downward spiral. Now, this isn't Chris Voss saying this. This is Nobel Prize winning behavioral economics theory. And what the heck does Nobel Prize winners have to do with this? Well, Danny Kahneman said that a loss stings twice as much as an equivalent gain. That's for human beings. So it doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, what your gender is, what your religion is. What does that mean? Losing $5 hurts twice as much as gaining $5. Well, a lot of people talk about I live in Vegas, and I've always used the Las Vegas analogy because it's a Las Vegas world. We need, you got to work the percentages. If you won $20 at a blackjack table, you'd be like, that's okay. That's nice. That's not bad, but it's just $20. If you lost $20, you'd be like, damn it. Oh, damn it. I lost $20. You walk around, you'd be mad for an hour.
Yeah.
It's the same $20. What does this have to do with real estate? You ask somebody to split the difference. Every time somebody gives in, they feel like they gave twice as much. You gave in $1,000, you feel like you gave 2,000. So in order to feel like it's even, you got to hit the other side for twice as much back. So, all right. So I gave in $2,000 on this price. I'm not paying $100 for this inspection. I've had enough. I've taken all I can take. And real estate agents watch transactions, $500,000 transactions crumble over $150.
Yes.
Well, this is this give and in thing. And the accumulation and the residue of this just gets worse and worse and worse. So let's say that they don't derail a transaction, but they remembered that, that they gave in $500 and, that eats at them so much they'll never refer the agent.
The referral, yeah.
So that's the thing that kills the referrals. Meeting in the middle kills referrals. You could do the same thing. You just got to say it a different way. That, none of this is about really changing any actions. It's how you characterize actions. You're trying to get a seller to cut the price to get it to sell. And you say, do you want your house to sell? I mean, that's a yes-oriented question. That's a problem. Because yes makes people feel trapped. And you're starting to talk about loss. The calculation of loss. The way you get a seller to cut the price is you say, how long do you want your house to not sell? How long do you want to let your house sit on the market while the other houses in the neighborhood sell? That's the same action. You're just teeing it up differently in an emotionally intelligent way. You're letting them compare the losses in a way that they should. But you've gotten away from this yes trap. I'm working on an article right now about the top 10 best no-oriented questions. The yes trap is a bad idea. We got a lot of projects in the iron. We're also on irons in the fire. We're working on a book for real estate specifically. It'll be coming out next year. I'm doing it with a guy. I do a lot of real estate coaching with Steve Shaw. And in the conversation the other day, the writer we're working with he said, well, how do you fix this? I say, you stay out of yes entirely. Just don't try to get yes. Use how. Yes is nothing without how. How long do you want your house to not sell? Instead of, do you want your house to sell? Just simple change in the wording is an emotionally intelligent move. And then it doesn't make people feel pushed. You get them to think about it. You get them to see something. It's guided discovery. And then they refer. Then the referral rates start to jump. Then an agent can build a sustainable business because real estate agents are sole proprietors. They're in business. It is a business, and business succeeds long term.
Got it. So is that also, when you're talking about how to discuss the emotional drivers, is that somewhat the same line of thinking when you use the word how instead of yes and no questions? You're getting
to you use how a lot. And then the emotional drivers, the crazy thing about that is, the emotional drivers that are critical issues are largely negative. And against every instinct in our body, the neuroscience is clear. The best way to get a negative is to just call it out, address it head on. The elephant in the room. You don't get rid of the elephant in the room by denying it's there. That causes an explosion. And denying it's there causes an explosion so many times that people choose to ignore the elephant. It never occurs to them that simply pointing the elephant in the room out makes it smaller every time. Somebody, you're trying to get a seller to drop their price to get their house to sell. You can also say, you're not going to like what I have to say. They're not going to want you to get them to drive the price. And our gut says, we want to say, well, I don't want you to not like what I'm going to say, the denial. But it doesn't occur to us that the 2 millimeter shift is to go from a denial to a call out. I got something to tell you, you're just not going to like it. Your house is overpriced. They'll listen to that. If you just say, your house is overpriced, that's blunt force trauma. That's hitting them with the truth with no warning. Warn people the truth is coming. Human beings are remarkably resilient with warning. And they're resilient instantly. You're not going to like what I have to say. Half a second, you wait. Your house is priced too high. It's not going to move in this market. That's an emotionally intelligent way to tell somebody the price is too high. Don't catch them off guard with bad news.
So true.
Real estate agent's job is to not catch people off guard with bad news. It's to deliver the bad news after someone has been given the warning to brace themselves. That's how you do it in an emotionally intelligent way. Because every conversation in real estate is a tough conversation. So don't let people get caught off guard, but also don't catch them off guard with the bad news. Give them a warning it's coming.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so applicable to realtors. So what about the that's right?
Oh, that's where I was going next.
I love that one. Yeah. Well, talk to us about that. What is that philosophy behind that?
You know, that's right is what people say when they feel heard and understood. And then, you know, if you get, I mean, like we're trying to describe the best that's right possible, like a 5-star that's right. Like people bond to some degree every time they say that's right. And when people feel fully and completely and fully understood, the bonding is insane. It's actually, you know, you're doing two things at the same time. You're triggering an epiphany moment. But this bonding thing, when we feel bonded to someone, we get a hit of a neurochemical that we produce ourselves called oxytocin. Oxytocin is a bonding drug. And you bond with whoever you're with when you get a jolt of that drug. It's unavoidable. It's like, you know, there's an Australian zoologist way back when that got baby geese to bond to him just because he made sure he was standing in front of their eggs when they pecked their way out of their eggs. Yeah, and they bond with the first thing that they see. You know, ideally it's the mother goose there and they bond with the mother goose. You know, ideally it wasn't a wolf that just killed the mother goose and they bond to the wolf. But this Australian zoologist proved that, you know, he's got little baby geese following him around because he was standing outside the egg when they pecked their way out.
Wow.
That's what bonding does. You get bonded to who you see when you get a jolt of this stuff. When people say that's right, especially when they feel fully and completely understood, they bond. What does this mean for a realtor? You summarize everything that they've gone up to now. You don't summarize your approach. You summarize their journey. You summarize the facts of the situation. You summarize how they feel about it. And a great summary, the other side gets a bang, they get hit with oxytocin, and then they're bonded to you. They stick with you through thick and thin. And this is what happens with charismatic leaders. Charismatic leader gets on television and people listen to him, and that leader says something that the people believe in. And, you know, I'll use Donald Trump as a great example, and I'm not criticizing him, nor am I supporting him with this observation. This is completely apolitical observation. People don't understand how devoted his followers are. But what has happened at some point in time, President Trump has said something that a person who's supportive of him, they completely believe in. And they looked at the TV and they didn't say, "You're right, Mr. Trump." They said, "That's right." That's right is what people say when they are all in with someone. And then the detractors of Trump will say, "How do these people stick with Trump through thick and thin? You know, they don't care." You know, Donald Trump famously said, "I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, my followers would still support me." That's the power of oxytocin. That's the power of the bonding moment. People will ignore everything else once they decide they're all in with someone. This is just not a charismatic leader. This is human nature. That's the power of oxytocin. Summarize your client's journey to them verbally, especially the pitfalls, especially what they believe. Get a "that's right" out of them, and they will be bonded to you and devoted to you.
So give me an example of summarizing. Would that be where you let's say you've got a seller and they've lived there for 50 years in their house, and you summarize that, you know, I know this isn't a difficult move for you. What would summarizing that, is it repeating back what you've heard them say? Is it
An element, a critical element is repeating back what they've heard them say. You know, if somebody's lived in a house for 50 years, I'd say, "Look, you got memories here. You have that you will cherish to the day you die. There are moments that existed here that can never be duplicated anywhere. You know, this isn't a house, this is a home. You know, you cried here, you laughed here, you watched your favorite TV shows here. You know, you spilled wine on a carpet here. You know, there are just moments here that are absolutely priceless. You're worried about who's going to live here. Are they going to love this house as much as you did? You know, you want to see somebody buy this house that will raise their children in it. You want to see somebody who will grow old here. You want to see somebody that has the same kind of memories you have in this home. And what's a seller who's lived there for 50 years gonna say? They're gonna go, wow, that's right. You really get what this place means to me. Mm-hmm. And then they'll stick to you. You know, the rough moments. You'll say, look, we're on a journey here. There's gonna be some tough moments here. You know, this is not all sunshine and roses. How are you gonna react when somebody comes through and they don't like your wallpaper, they don't like the paint on the wall? Are you going to say that makes them a bad person? They're not going to appreciate my memories? No, I'm not going to say that. You know, that's a no warranted question. You know, you're prepping people. Every agent in the real estate business has a pretty good idea of the kind of bumps in the road that are coming. Mm-hmm. You know, after you've demonstrated an understanding of what it is for a person to sell a home, not a house, a home, cherish memories of the past. Then you can start to tee up, all right, this is what some of the bumps in the road are going to look like. Somebody that this house is going to be perfect for is going to walk through your house and in front of you say something really dumb. You know, are you gonna crucify him for that? Mm-hmm. You know, let them know what's coming. Prep them. Bad news is on the way. Here's how we prep people for the bad news.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Okay, so question, Chris. So one, I love the story. I've been dealing with a lemon of a vehicle for the last year. Linda knows this. We've talked about it on the podcast. And so I've been going back to when you bought the red Toyota 4Runner. So one, I want to know, do you still have that?
Wait a minute. It's not a red. It's salsa red.
It's salsa pearl, right?
Right. I mean, that's the sexiest color that ever existed on earth. So I feel good just saying salsa red pearl makes me happy.
Okay, so one, do you still have it?
I do, yeah. I can't let that baby go. Sometimes I go out and just sit in it.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so two, here's what I love about that story. I feel like, and just humans in general, but real estate agents have a hard time sitting in the silence. And so I love to keep rereading that because and I love how you said, like, man, I'm embarrassed. I think you said, I don't have the page turned to me right now, but And so anyway, I want you to talk a little bit about like the sitting in the silence during negotiations, because I think just we have a hard time sitting in silence.
Yeah, a lot of people, probably about 2/3 of us have difficulty with silence. Yeah, and that's why we've even changed, you know, one of our skills we used to refer to as effective pauses. We're change it to dynamic silence because so much can happen. Mm-hmm. If you let it happen in the silence. And you got to find out what's there. You know, my son Brandon likes to say, you know, count 1,000s to yourself. And he practices it. Like anything you want to get good at, you know, you can do a mental rehearsal. You could do a mental rehearsal of you not responding. And count 1,000s to yourself. He says he's always prepped to count to 10. He never gets to 3. He says once he got to 7 before the other side broke the silence. Mm-hmm. You know, but and in that particular instance, I mean, I laid a lot of tactical empathy out there. You know, I laid the salesman's arguments out for why I should drop my price. You know, I didn't let him say them. I said them. I said, I'm in love with this truck. I said, this is the sexiest color I ever saw in my life. You know, and it's worth. You know, he's going to say to me, it's worth more than what we're asking for. So I said that. I said, you know, the truck's worth more than what you're asking for. I love it. It's beautiful. You know, if I don't buy this truck, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night. I'm gonna lay awake at night thinking about this truck. You know, that's all stuff this guy's going to say to me. The crazy thing is when you articulate their arguments, you leave them without an argument.
Mm-hmm. That's what I love about this story.
And I did, and then I hit him with how am I supposed to do that? You know, I said, how am I supposed to pay that? And I just looked at him, and I sat in a silence. Yeah, you know, And he looked at me and he would blink like 4 times, like, because his brain had been deactivated. I'd taken every argument out of his mouth, left him with nothing. And he just stared at me and he blinked, and then he got up and he went in the back and he came back out with a better price. And I did it, it's like that old, it's like that hair washing commercial, wash, rinse, repeat. So I'm like, hey, it worked. I'm going to try it again. And so I went through the whole spiel again. I said everything, the same thing I said 10 minutes earlier. I said it all again. And I said, how am I supposed to do that? And then I shut up, shut the front door. And he blinked at me 5, 6 times again and got up and went out and got a better price and went back and forth like a yo-yo till he came down to my price.
Mm-hmm. That's such a good lesson, especially for agents though. Linda, don't you think? One, twofold. One, negotiating your commission. And then 2, when you're in the middle of negotiations with the other party too. Because I think you can tell when you get some agents and they just can't talk to their clients. And so they end up, like you're going to win, that you got one over on them.
Well, yeah. And let's talk about commission. All right. So a real estate agent at full commission is one of the greatest bargains on earth. Mm-hmm. Any agent worth their salt is worth more than full commission. No agent should ever, ever, ever discount their commission. It's a bad idea. To start with, you're a bargain. If you're a good agent, in business, a finder's fee is 10%. And somebody who finds a deal doesn't do half the work a real estate agent does. Mm-hmm. Agents knock themselves out. I'm shocked at what a bargain an agent is for the amount of work that, is some transactions that agents will put up with. They probably might have made more money if they were flipping burgers at McDonald's. Agents are a great deal. So first of all, an agent should never, ever, ever discount their commission because you're worth it to start with. Secondly, your commission is an audition for your ability to negotiate. If you can't stand up for yourself, then the client is like, how can they stand up for me if they can't stand up for themselves? You don't want to be combative in defending your commission. And you have to defend your commission. You're going to be their ambassador. You're going to be their champion. You show how you stand up for yourself in a calm, immovable, emotionally intelligent way. Mm-hmm. Because that is how you will perform on their behalf. And I think that's what a lot of agents miss. Mm-hmm. And you can say it like that. You can say to a client, like, I know if I can't support my fee, you realize that I can't support your price. I realize this is an audition. My job is to stand up for myself just as firmly and as gently and eloquently as I would stand up for you. I'm not going to give in on my behalf. If I give in for me, how do you expect me to stand up for you? Mm-hmm. And say it like that. Tonality is critical. Tonality is, the Brits have a great saying, you can be as rude as you want as long as you're polite about it. That has to do with tonality. Tonality is the first great tool. Stand up for yourself. Don't cut your fee. And stand up firmly. Because if you cut your fee, then you're also hurting your ability to get a referral. You ain't going to be happy that you sold it for them. If you cut your fee, they're like, it's just another dime a dozen agent. Any agent could have done this. This person couldn't stand up for themselves. That's proof that any agent could have done this. Mm. So they will discount you when you discount you, is what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You talk about what type are you, the negotiation styles, and you talk about the analyst, the accommodator, and the assertive. And so my question is, do you think somebody can be a little of all 3 of those, or do you feel like some people are very much one or the other?
All right, so here's a classic hostage negotiator's answer. That depends. All right, here's what it depends on. We have, it's a Black Swan Group's contention that we all have a default wiring, a default type. From our caveman days, how we're wired. When caveman was threatened, it was fight, flight, make friends. You saw something, a creature you didn't know what it was on a jungle path. You fought it, you ran from it, you made friends with it. The indecisive caveman got eaten. couldn't make up his mind and got eaten. And we're all the descendant of one of those three types. Now, that doesn't mean they can't learn. That doesn't mean that we don't grow and adapt. Now, some people grow and adapt at a quicker rate than others do. Like the chief of marketing of my company, Maya, who's also happens to be my daughter-in-law. She's an analyst. Analysts are assassins. An analyst, I was training Polish military one time, a long time ago, and there was a woman that was with her special forces, and she had on a T-shirt that said "Death waits in the dark." She's an analyst. An analyst want to snipe you from a half a mile away. You never know what happened. Mm-hmm. My daughter-in-law, she'll shoot you with a sniper rifle from 1,000 yards out, put a silencer on it. She'd drop you in your tracks. You never know it was her. She is the most bubbly person you ever met in your life because she's really smart. Because, the effervescent personality makes more deals. It's not necessarily a better deal, but they have a tendency to make more deals. Mm-hmm. Now, as an analyst, my daughter-in-law, she's so smart. She's taking in information in an environment. She's seeing bubbly people making more deals, not necessarily better deals. She's let me adopt this bubbly personality and see what it does on my ability to do transactions. Mm-hmm. She cuts phenomenal deals. She's cut some of the best deals in the history of my company. When she used to handle my speaking engagements. She doesn't particularly like to negotiate. She's a marketer. She loves marketing. Mm-hmm. Right person, right seat. So I don't ask her to make deals anymore, even though she's ridiculously good at them. She thrives on marketing. But she laughs and giggles in transactions, and she gets discounts sometimes just by not answering, by just laughing. And she and people love dealing with her, and they start giving in. So, your original question is, are you only one type? Yes, and you can evolve and learn from the other types. Mm-hmm. Of each of the three types, there are things that make each type that are essential to be a great negotiator. You have to be assertive. Mm-hmm. You just have to be assertive in a nice way. That's the accommodators, they're nice. My daughter-in-law is an analyst. You got to think things through. Analysts are great at thinking things through. You start throwing together the ability to think things through, the ability to assert in an emotionally intelligent way, you got a dangerous negotiator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. That's spot on to my question, because you even said, if you're assertive, you have to be conscious of your tone. Yeah. And if you're too accommodating, then you may build great relationships, but you might not accomplish anything.
You got it exactly right. That's right. I feel so bonded to you right now.
I love this book. So good. Okay, perfect.
Awesome. So Chris, you're just kind of touching the tip of the iceberg here. If people want to find you, follow you, learn more, I know a couple of my realtors out of Texas have actually taken your course. I don't know a lot about it. So kind of share with the audience, if you will, what does more learning from Chris Voss look like?
Well, especially for real estate agents. I'm working with a guy named Steve Shull. And Steve is an NFL player that's been successfully coaching real estate agents for over 20 years. Steve came across my book and called me on the phone and says, we have to get together. We got to coach real estate agents specifically. This is a game changer. Mm-hmm. He was a very successful agent on his own right. He was so good at it. He started coaching it. And it was the old reason, logic, persuasion approach. And he discarded it immediately. He used to do facts, logic, and reason. And now Steve says facts, logic, and reason do not overcome human emotion. Human beings make emotional decisions. Mm-hmm. And we're taking people to a whole new level in the real estate industry. So send an email to info@blackswanltd.com. info@blackswan, BLACKSWAN, Ask about the Performance Real Estate Coaching Program with Chris Voss and Steve Shull. We will connect you directly to it. There are two things that are true about it simultaneously. it's not cheap. It'll be the cheapest money you ever spent. One of the agents that we're coaching said, I'm having more fun and making more money. And she was already $1 million producer and insanely successful. And she said, for the first time in my 20 years, I'm having fun. And I'm making more money. And in point of fact, she's actually working less. Now, that sounds crazy. That sounds insane. That sounds impossible. That's what an emotionally intelligent approach to this business will do. Mm-hmm. You go from being worried about, taking calls in the middle of the night from crazy sellers to just really enjoying your business and your life.
That's great. So when's the new book going to be out?
Our real estate book is going to be out early next year, which is, you and Steve and I are working on this book together, and we're talking about it with the current clients now. Everything that's going to be in the book is the stuff that we're talking with people we're coaching right now. But the book will be out next year. We're actually going to have 2 books out next year, and we get a ton of resources on our website as well. I mean, blackswanltd.com, and a lot of free resources. Check out the free stuff. You're going to get a long way with the book and the free stuff. You're going to be delighted at how far you get if you choose to step up into the coaching.
Awesome. Love it. Well, we're about out of time. Dana, you got any final thoughts or questions for Chris?
Gosh, I know we're about out of time, but I just have to ask, will you just share what's been your favorite, just because I'm into this stuff. I love to watch all these shows and all the FBI stuff. What's been your favorite hostage situation? What's your favorite one you've ever been a part of?
Oh, wow. The one that I actually negotiated.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, we, the first time we changed our proof of life, we dropped it into the middle of a case we were working in the Philippines. I went from, into how do we know the hostage is alive, basically. How question. It's the power of the how question. And, the bad guy was a murderer. We didn't, it's not often that your kidnappers are actually murderers. This guy was a murderer. And he inadvertently promised that he wouldn't harm our hostage through the course of the case. And then we got him to drop his guard sufficiently and get him so casual that the Philippine National Police did a rescue and rescued the hostage.
Wow.
And that was ridiculously satisfying. And then when we found out afterwards the guy had killed some other people in some cases I knew about, I just didn't know it was this guy. We got a really bad guy, and we made a big difference in some people's lives. And it was a case in the Philippines.
Wow, that's cool.
That's real cool. I'm sure the odds were against you on that one, because normally I would think if someone has killed, you got a less chance that you're going to get them out of there, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, ain't nothing better than beating the odds.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's why you live in Vegas, Chris. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time today. We love your book. If you haven't read the book, again, pick up the book, Never Split the Difference. Look for his real estate related book coming out early next year. And remember, if you like our podcast, the best thing you can do for Dana and I is leave us a review so that other people can find the podcast. And then, of course, pass it on to people that you feel like would get value from these, the podcast topics that we have. So Dana, I will see you next week. And Chris, we want to say thank you for your time.
It was fun being on with you ladies. I enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you, Chris, so much.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.